Okay, so just to tell you a little bit about who I am and why I'm here. Okay, there we go. Just to tell you a little bit about who I am and why I'm here. So last year at Cannafest, I was arrested with 18 grams of cannabis at Cannafest. And what I told the police is, this is my medicine, I want it back. So long story short, they arrested me, and we'll go through the details, but what I do in my normal life, I'm a consultant for the medical marijuana industry in California, and I'm also a court-certified expert witness in California for medical marijuana. So dealing with the courts is something that I'm very accustomed to. With me is my Czech attorney. I have many in the US, but only one in Czech, Jan. I'm going to put your...
Poláček. Hello.
Introduce yourself a little.
I'm a criminal lawyer in Prague and here, and David called me Saturday evening, and it was a great start of this case you'll hear about.
Okay, so this is exactly where I was and what happened. This is the old location where Cannabis was, but I guess it was damaged this year. Anyway, so you can see there's a bench, and you can see somebody sitting at that bench right in front. Literally the worst place you could possibly be to open up your weed or smoke weed at Cannafest. Many years in the past, and last year for sure, they were doing a little raid where they go in and just look for people with marijuana or people smoking marijuana to give them fines. So what exactly happened is I sat down, opened my jar of weed, and right at that time a police officer came up. Major problem. I said it was medicine. They didn't understand it. They took me down to the police station, and I was probably sitting in the police station right underneath the expo center for a good 4 or 5 hours before they got a translator and started to help move the process along. As Jan mentioned, it was probably 9 p.m. on Saturday when I ended up calling him out of just a horrible list of names and then a Google search to find an attorney. You have a lot of rights in the Czech Republic, but they don't necessarily make it easy to find your attorney. Fortunately, I found somebody who was perfect and exactly what I need. So the nice thing is they didn't catch me passing it. They didn't catch me selling it. They literally just caught me with it. So I'm not saying I would have done those other things, but if they had caught me passing a joint, it would have been a different situation. Fortunately, they just caught me literally holding the weed. So they weren't trying to catch me. That was one of the funny parts, is what their goal was while they were doing this raid is to catch people smoking a joint. And anywhere, if you're caught smoking a joint and you have less than 10 grams, it's anywhere from a $500 to a $5,000 or 5,000 crown fine. So generally what they're looking for is just small busts to make money without dealing with a lot of paperwork. I must have seen probably 50 or 60 people go in and out of the police station while I was sitting there, and they were trying to deal with my big problem. The police in the Czech Republic have no concept of medical marijuana. There is a medical marijuana program you have, but without flexing your rights and making sure that the police know that this is medicine, there's a big problem. In the US, it's a lot more respected, especially in California where I'm from. The police catches you with marijuana and you have your doctor's recommendation. They aren't doing anything with your weed. So finding the attorney, like I said, was easier said than done. So if you are planning on getting busted by the police in the Czech Republic, it's probably a good idea to contact an attorney first. Obviously, that's easier said than done, but just keep pushing, and eventually you have the right to an attorney, so they have to give you an attorney. Or you have to be able to find an attorney, which is very important. And a tip from my attorney, which fortunately wasn't the case in mine, but I've heard of other people that this happened to. If you do get caught and you're a foreigner, the last thing you want to do is say, oh, don't worry, I'm leaving the country. I said, oh, don't worry, I'm staying to fight this case because you took my marijuana away. But if I had said, oh, don't worry about it, I'm on a plane tomorrow, they may have actually arrested me and kept me for 6 months. So, you know, if you do find yourself in this position, you definitely say that you're going to stay and take care of the case, regardless of what the situation is. The fun part. So one of the big things that's really different between the US and the Czech Republic when it comes to the law, anything you say can and will be used against you in court to police in the US. Now, something that's huge and incredibly powerful here is the first time you make a statement to the police, you aren't held accountable to it. So this is literally mind-blowing from where I come from, because again, anything you say to the police, they're going to use against you. Here, you say something to the police, and then you're given an opportunity for a second interview. And during the second interview, they can throw out anything you said, and you can't be held liable for it. So what they actually expected me to do was, instead of saying, this is my medication I brought with me from California, they thought I was going to say, oh, no, this is just weed I got in the Czech Republic. And the difference would have been that it would be an administrative fine versus what they charged me with was importing marijuana. So, you know, everything dealing with the police was very civil. It was just a normal interview. They didn't do anything really underhanded. Probably because I was at Cannafest and because I was a foreign patient, they were maybe a little less rough on me than they might be. But it was actually one of the better police experiences I've had. So we went through it. I changed my statement to make sure that they knew for a fact that it was all coming from California. And then I had to come back for court. So what they actually charged me with was that up there: unauthorized production and handling of narcotic and psychotropic substances and poisons. So this is a criminal charge, and the original criminal order they gave me was, as you see up there, 50,000 crowns and or 6 months in jail, as well as 3 years banishment from the country. So, you know, I'm not opposed to paying 50,000 crowns, but really, at this point, I'm still saying I want my medicine back, and even right now, I still want my medicine back. So we went to court, and there's the date. It was the 18th of September. The expectation was, like what normally happens in the US, at the first level of court, you generally lose. So you don't expect to go to any higher levels of court until you've lost first and then you appeal. What I was hoping for is we were going to lose, we were going to appeal, and they would reduce the punishment so at least I wasn't banished from the country. And that's what I asked the judge. What we had as far as documents, I had my medical marijuana document from California saying that this is my medicine and I'm allowed to use it. Because I'm an expert witness, I have access to a lot of other court documents that many people don't just have at hand. One of them happened to be a letter from the airport police in California saying that I could get on a plane with 8 ounces of weed. That's roughly 220 grams. So I had the letter from my doctor, I had the letter from the airport police, and then my wonderful attorney found another letter from the Czech Ministry of Health saying this is how a medical marijuana patient, a foreign medical marijuana patient, imports their medicine. Right? So when the judge looked at all this, she really didn't have any other option. I mean, we expected that we were going to lose, but really all the paperwork adds up to what did we do wrong. The prosecutor was very funny. She was definitely anti-marijuana, definitely wanted me to be punished as much as they could punish. One of the extremely funny statements they made, so a little more on my background, I smoke a lot of cannabis. And when I say a lot, most of you won't believe how much I smoke. It's in the range of over 50 grams per day, every single day. So for me to bring my medicine for a 2-week trip, I would need to bring roughly about 700 grams of cannabis. And this is what I said in court. And of course, the prosecutor said, well, why didn't you bring more? And obviously my response was, well, I thought you'd have a problem with it. Because, bringing about a kilo of weed with you on an airplane is maybe a little much. She didn't think so, apparently. I should have brought more. And I did this trip. The judge was very interested in the case. It's a lot of times for judges, they have to deal with routine things or horrible things, murders, real crime. So a lot of times, and this is common in the U.S. too, you'll find a judge that enjoys dealing with medical marijuana because it's something different. Nobody got hurt. There's no real damages. There's no real crime. So it's kind of more of an interesting thing to observe, and that's how the judge's attitude definitely felt. She seemed like she was very interested in what was going on, which was good for us. So, like I said, we expected to lose, and we're just at the district court. So we thought we were going to lose and then have to appeal to the higher levels of court. Reality, we won. So the judge found me not guilty of importing marijuana, which again kind of blew my mind and blew my attorney's mind. Here we were being charged in criminal court and expecting to lose, and instead not guilty. So it would be nice if that was the end of the story, but it isn't. The prosecutor appealed. So we expected to lose and then appeal. We won, and the prosecutor appealed. So this means that there is still the opportunity, the way I see it, to take it to a higher level of court. The reason that's important is once you get to the higher levels of court, the lower levels of court have to do what the higher levels of court did. So if I can get this to the point where it's actually a Supreme Court case, that means it'll change the law in the Czech Republic in a very solid way. There's no way that a police officer would, well, if we manage to take it all the way to the Supreme Court, there's no way a police officer would take marijuana away from a patient, a foreign medical marijuana patient, without at least looking for the documents. But we have to get it there. So, as I said, this is very similar to the way the court system works in the U.S. It's kind of a rough comparison of how the different court systems are structured, but very similar structure. And generally what happens is when you have a medical marijuana case in California, you lose at the lowest level. So you lose at the district court, and then you have to appeal it to in the U.S., it's the county court. So you lose at the county court, you appeal, you go to the Superior Court, you appeal there, you go to the Supreme Court, the California Supreme Court, and if you lose there and still want to appeal it, there's a federal level too, but they're all different structures of law. So it's definitely a little different, but very, very, very similar. Some of the rights that you have in the Czech Republic are really very similar and very good. You have the right to an attorney, you have the right not to incriminate yourself, you have the right not to talk to the police if you want, and you have the case law structure, which is really important. That means if this happens to somebody and it's successfully prosecuted and wins, it won't happen to anybody else. So that's a very good thing. in some ways, the Czech system is actually a lot better. The fact that you can change your story to the police the first time you're interviewed by the police, it's not legally binding, that's huge. You could say you did whatever crime you want, and then in the second story, just completely deny it, and they can't hold you accountable, which, again, is still mind-blowing for me. One of the other things, I mean, and this really comes to how new the Czech Republic is, you don't have a lot of law. You don't have a lot of case law, you don't have a lot of, I mean, there's a lot, you have a very strong, large legal structure, but compared to what we've done in the US, where it's been going on for decades and decades of cases and regulations being put on top of things, things are a lot more simple in the Czech Republic, and there's a lot more opportunity for change. One of the big things that is a problem with the US is you have to fight through all these different levels of laws that have been created to try to make some difference. And that can be through an initiative process or through the case law process or trying to work with your elected officials. But any way you look at it, we have a lot more documents when it comes to our law. So there's a huge opportunity here, and that's one of the reasons I took on this case, is we need to make good case law for the Czech Republic. Now, if I lose this case, it will also be case law, and it'll be very clear that a foreign medical marijuana patient can't import their marijuana. But given that the Ministry of Health has already said you can, it's going to be a really weird, complicated thing. So it's really good that we push this case forward and get a win, because then it will be very solid that if you're a foreign medical marijuana patient, you have nothing to worry about as far as bringing your medicine with you to the Czech Republic. Okay, so to avoid getting caught and running into the problem that I ran into, really what I was doing was being stupid. I wasn't thinking. I sat down right in front of the Cannafest venue when I knew they were busting people for little amounts of weed and smoking joints. So obviously, don't be stupid is a big one. But here in the Czech Republic, as long as you have less than 10 grams on you, there's almost no way that you're going to get any sort of criminal charge. You're just going to get a fine. So if you are walking around and you're worried about it at all, just have less than 10 grams on you. And one of the bad things about the law out here is they're very strict on giving marijuana, distributing marijuana, to the point of passing a joint is considered the same as selling marijuana to somebody. So it's really not a good idea to pass joints around, especially in a public setting out here. Though you're probably okay smoking a joint, as long as you're not in somewhere where somebody will be offended by it. If you do get caught, ask for an attorney. You have those rights. Attorneys can be kind of expensive, but they're definitely worth it. And the attorneys here in the Czech Republic are a lot cheaper than the U.S. So it's not. Sorry, you're not necessarily looking at something where you might have to spend a million crowns. You can probably, in most cases, get out for a lot less than that. So even if you don't have a lot of money, it's still worth contacting an attorney and at least finding out how much they're willing to charge you depending on your situation. If you have a medical cannabis rec from any other country and you get caught with marijuana, you should not accept the fine. You should fight the case. So the fact is, and what I've shown so far is, if it's your medicine, you should be able to use it. So there's one of the things that's too tempting, and it may financially make more sense to pay a 500 crown fine than actually hire an attorney. But until people hire attorneys and fight these cases and teach the police that they can't be taking medical marijuana away from people, that's what has to be done. And it's just a matter of somebody who's in the right situation getting caught with it and deciding, no, I do want to fight this. Hopefully we'll get some other people doing that from the Czech Republic. I guess the other big thing is if you can't afford an attorney, just don't say anything. You don't have to say anything. You can keep quiet, and everything you say during the first interview, definitely you have a little more flexibility there, but you really don't need to say anything. So keep quiet and you'll be safer. If you don't have an attorney. I mean, if you have an attorney, you still want to be quiet, but talk to the attorney about what to say. And again, just to reiterate, like the worst thing you could ever possibly say, the worst thing you could ever possibly do if you're a foreign person and you get caught with marijuana in the Czech Republic is to say something along the lines of, oh, don't worry about it, I'm leaving the country. So just to reiterate, if you do get caught with marijuana, always say you're going to stay and fight the case. Never say, hey, I'm just going to leave. And they look at it as fleeing. You know, you're going to flee the country, and that's a much bigger crime. So what's next? The appeal, and let the attorney talk about that a little bit. Right now, we're waiting for some documents. So,
hello again. First thing I want to say is that I want to thank you, David, for invitation and for his courage to fight this case and take it to the highest court, because this case is a little bit special. As I said, David called me Saturday evening, and I talked to him, and I told him just to remain silent. It's maybe the best thing you can do all the time, because it's very simple, it's very easy. You should not know anything else. You just keep your mouth shut, and that's all. And later, it's always good to at least contact an attorney and ask what to do. This case is special because for the first time, the police just wanted to accuse David from possession of marijuana, which is less dangerous, let's say, in the eyes of the law. And it's the possible sentence is up to 1 year of imprisonment. But David refused to, let's say, use this defense as a symbol and not winning the case, and he accepted that he bring the marijuana from United States, which is the problem, because if you import anything, if you bring it with yourself anything, the charge is, the possible sentence is much more complicated, it's much worse. It's up to 5 years of imprisonment. There is no difference between simple distribution for money, giving somebody a weed, or import marijuana. So they don't distinguish between those crimes. So David risked a lot, and the risk was worthy, I guess, because we presented to the police first, and then in court, the paper from David's doctor that he's allowed to have marijuana, to possess it, and the police didn't actually know anything about this, and they always asked us if David has any agreement with the travel company, with the flight company, and we say, well, no. Why? What for? And they say, well, if you are in the plane with marijuana, you have to have any agreement or something. We said no, but what we have is the guideline from Californian airport police, and there was exactly how many ounces you can have in a plane. So they wrote an email to some FBI or somebody high in the United States who is cooperating with Czech Republic, and they denied that this is possible. They said, no, you can't, you never can fly with marijuana on yourself. So we were a little bit confused, and they were confused. So the police did what they do all the time when they are confused. They charge the person. So David was charged from importing marijuana, and in the court we presented a lot of documents, as David mentioned. And what I think the most important document was first from his doctor, and second from Czech Ministry of Health. And it's a document for medical users of marijuana for European countries, to just how to travel between European countries with your marijuana. And what is important, that you need to have a paper from your doctor that you are allowed to travel with marijuana, and there should be some maximum amount of you can have on yourself all the time, which is not on the document David has, because he smokes so much that it's impossible, literally, to have it there. So that's for the case. And next steps. As David said, the state prosecutor was very angry that we won the first trial, and appealed on the place during the procedure. And now we are waiting for the verdict to be translated for David, which is already 2 months, and it's still not done, which is normal in here. And just after this, the state prosecutor will reason the appeal, and then we go to the higher court, which is municipal court in Prague. David was talking about the case law in here, which is not really, we don't have the case law system in here. But the truth is that if we take this place up to the, let's say, constitutional court, and the constitutional court or the highest court in Czech Republic will say their opinion, this opinion is binding, and it's very important for next cases. However, it can take, let's say, years, and that's I admire the courage of David, that he just want to win. That's all from me.
Maybe what, 6 months or now we should see the next?
Yeah, in 6 months probably we will see the next. We'll be in the highest court. We will see their verdict. And what is also possible is that the police and the state prosecutors they don't want to take the case to the highest court. They don't want to have any complications, you know. So maybe they just cancel the appeal or something. We don't know. It's up to them. So we will inform you maybe probably next year.